Hello, and welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase for The Chain by Fleetwood Mac to be at the very tippy top of your Spotify Wrapped.
Mm-hmm. My name's Caitlin, and mine was at number 9 for normal reasons.
Yeah, totally normal.
Totally normal. No, nothing to see here. I just really, really like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, all I ever hear you talk about is how much you love Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, and specifically The Chain.
Yeah. Ever so often, like, we'll be hanging out and she'll just be like, you know who I like a lot? Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I cry just for the beauty of music.
Because of music. It has nothing to do. And what makes it hilarious, too, is I feel like The Chain is not one of those songs that you listen to and want to cry necessarily. I feel like it's more of like a raging song. So the fact that there's a reason to cry about it is what makes, I think, this whole dialogue we're having more funny.
Well, we all perceive music differently. So.
Just in case you wanted me to explain the joke. Hello, I'm Emberlyn. And I have this.
The dead eye stare. Manny, do you have anything to say?
No, not a thing.
not a thought in that head of his.
So, Caitlin, this episode is a bit of a doozy.
Yeah.
What episode are we going to be talking about this week?
We're talking about Our Flag Being Sad Season 1, Episode 8, We Gull Way Back.
All the way back.
All the way back.
So, Caitlin, this episode is a bit of a doozy for many reasons.
Yeah.
In part because we encounter an old friend of Ed's, Calico Jack.
Calico Jack!
Played by Will Arnett.
Mm-hmm.
And while Jack and Ed are hitting it off, reconnecting, reminiscing, Steed is not so comfortable with that dynamic.
Not happy.
And not just that, he's also a little bit jealous.
Oh, a lot of bit jealous.
And everything seems like it's becoming a little awkward between them until ultimately Jack gets kicked off the boat for killing Carl, Buttons' seagull friend or pet or partner.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily clear.
Pour one out for Carl.
R.I.P. Carl. You would have loved Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Ed comes back.
Yay.
He and Steed reunite.
Yay.
But unfortunately, it's just in time for the British to show up and take them all hostage. Something that it turns out Jack had a hand in making happen,
Ruh-roh.
along with Izzy, Spanish Jackie, and the British, including one of the Badman twins, Chauncey. So, Caitlin, what hooked you when it came to this episode?
Oh, Will Arnett. I love Will Arnett. I love big Arrested Development fan.
I love big Arrested Development fan.
I love big Arrested Development fan. I should do a podcast. I'm really, really well with words. Well with words. That wasn't on purpose. All right, I need to be put down. Goodbye. Bye. But no, I like Will Arnett. It was another addition to the guest stars of being like, hey, I've seen you before, and it's like I wasn't expecting like someone like him to show up, even though Leslie Jones and Fred Armisen have already been here. Yeah, and I also just love how he plays Calico Jack because it's so obnoxious. But like it could have been like easily like really annoying, and like he is annoying, but in like a funny way. Yeah, and because that's who he's supposed to be. Yeah, but it could have easily been like unenjoyable to watch. Where it could have been torture. Yeah, yeah, but like his delivery of the lines and this gruff like way that he talks is so funny. Yes. So he was a big hook, and also just the fact that he shows up and he's talking to a naked Buttons.
That was actually my hook for this episode, was Buttons moonbathing.
Oh yeah.
I feel like for me, he was one of the people that really carried this episode, which I'll get more into later. But the fact that he's just out there, and apparently Carl also has to be there. Of course. And that's when we see Jack down in the water, which I love because it's not like, it is clearly water, but it's also not clear that it's water because the boat's not moving. The boat doesn't move at all. Which I don't know if that was intentional or just somebody like made a mistake in post, but it's so funny.
It works.
It works. It works in the way it really gives me like Princess Bride like soundstage vibes where it's like it's almost like we're in the uncanny valley when it comes to some of the settings, but I really, really like that. Yeah, it almost makes the whole thing look like a very big elaborate play. Yeah. Another thing that really gets me is when Jim takes on Jackie's 19th husband, Geraldo.
We have a name.
Who turns out to be one of the Siete Gallos, and I love this just because of Fred Armisen's delivery in this scene. He walks in when Vico or Jim is posing as the priest. He walks into the confession box. He's like, forgive me, Father, for I did sin.
I did sin.
I'm sorry, but like, again, it's just, I don't know what it is about him, but just the ironic way that he delivers his lines gets me every time.
Yeah. And also, it's like nonchalant, but like he means every single word.
He truly does. Yes, like I believe him. I'm like, I believe that you did sin.
You did do some sins.
You certainly did.
Sins did be had.
So what was your favorite part of episode 6?
I've got a couple of them. One of my favorite parts was we had Steed have like his first big captain moment.
Yes.
When he confronts Calico Jack after he kills Carl. Rip Carl.
R.I.P. Carl. You would have loved Rumors by... I think we already did this bit.
We did. Just keep doing it over and over again.
R.I.P. Carl. You would have loved Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
No, but I really like that because of how badass it was of Steed to come out and be like, get off my ship. It was good.
Yes.
It was very great. It was such a good moment because like I love that he has this big tough moment as like this pirate captain, but he's still like in his silk gown.
Yeah.
And which I love because it's so Steed.
Yeah.
Of like him being like, I still love all of my fine things, but I also get to be this tough captain.
Yes.
And it's like one of the first moments where like we see him be both.
It's where he's at his best, I think.
Yeah,
as a character. Yeah.
And you kind of see like that growth in him because I don't think episode 1 Steed could have had that moment.
Episode 1 Steed couldn't even like get over like the deck of his ship.
Yeah. So I really like that moment. I also love the whole room people sequence with Wee John and Frenchie.
Yeah, I love that they're like sitting there talking about putting together a sitting nook and then like putting up this bowl of mints for people when they come over. And then Frenchie's just like, why would people come over? And Wee John is like, I think that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Like that is such a funny dialogue to me. Like they didn't have to include it, but it was like it was such a funny like B plot.
Yeah, I think like what I love about that whole scene is that I remember watching it and being like, this didn't have to be here.
No.
But I'm glad it is because it's so fun and it's just cute because like we didn't need the whole like plot of why Oluwande gave away his room.
Right.
But we did, and it just kind of adds to like just the dynamics between all the crew and like how like their lives are just as important as what's going on with Steed and Ed, which I think is fun.
Yes.
Also, what I really like about at that scene is that we really get some screen time for Wee John's dolly, which I had canon that Frenchie made for him. And because I think they have a really, really great like relationship together, whatever it may be, and I just love them together. And I feel like the whole room people scene is just like such a great dynamic in the way like that they work together.
Yeah.
I also just like in that scene the way that they like are just looking at the room. They're just like, what do we do here? Like, we've never been here before.
I know, like, wow, we got what we wanted, but now
what?
How do we actualize our dreams? Yeah. For me, definitely one of my favorites. I also agree with you that when Steed tells Jack to get off a ship, that's like a defining moment, I think, in Steed's. Not just in Steed's like relationship with himself as like this person who's maybe like a little passive and has never stuck up for himself before. I like that you mentioned that he was like technically one of Steed's high school bullies in a lot of ways, not because he is, but in the sense that he has that same energy of like, oh, like I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna call you names and I'm gonna make you feel like shit in front of your friend. I also like when Jackie and Jim are talking about the Siete Gallos. I like their dynamic a lot. I think you mentioned at one point to me that you want to see more of them. I very much agree with
100%.
that. They're very funny together. And then I also like when Steed is spying on Jack and Ed and Lucius comes in and is just like, are you well? Because and this is maybe one of my favorite quotes in the episode. We see Lucius kind of come up and he's talking to Steed, and Steed's like kind of ignoring him and giving these passive answers. Yeah. And when he finally gets the telescope away from him, he says to Steed, "Long night." And Steed, who's still focused, is like, I don't know, because it's just been so long that he has no idea what's gone on in the time that he's been staring at Jack and Ed on the beach. So, wow, like great scene. I also think it's a good example of how Lucius is a very good person for Steed, because it seems like he really cares about Steed now that he sees that Steed and Ed seem to have like more of like a romantic dynamic going on, and he clearly wants to like protect him, which is just very nice. Like, I'm inclined, like, there's a part of me that wonders if Steed will give an absolute fuck when he finds out what has happened to Lucius. in season 2. I wonder what that is.
Yeah.
But then there's
We've
a part
never
of me,
seen the show before.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a part of me that wonders if there'll be more like of a sentimental thing between them, just because they seem like they're good friends now, and like now that Lucius understands who Steed is, there's definitely like a good dynamic between them.
I feel like he's protective of him.
Yeah,
in a way, for sure. Yeah.
So, did you have any other favorite parts of episode 6?
Well, I mean, the ending, the chain. How can we not talk about that?
I know.
Only the culture reset that we all experienced. It's great. It's great. It's great television. The best of, you may say. I think that it was so cool how they just, like, not only, like, so David Jenkins said at some point that he wanted that song from the beginning, and he made sure, like, one of the first things that he did was get the rights to that song to be used before anything else, which I think is really great, because I can't picture any other song being used. Right. And then I'm not sure if I think they filmed it like sped up, which I think is really cool that to get it. I love it when things go to the beat of music, whether it's intentional or not. And this was clearly intentional to go to the beat. And I just think that was a really cool touch. Yeah. And then, of course, the foot touch heard around the world of Ed and Steed are like on the ground together. And they're just staring at each other. And it's like another one of those moments where they're on their own little bubble, where it's their world is only each other, and it doesn't matter that like something scary and terrible just happened, because they're together and that's all that matters. And just the way that they're staring at each other is so beautiful. And the fact that Ed reaches his foot out to Steed, and then Steed puts his foot on top of Ed's, is just like they can't hold hands, so that's what they're doing. That's the best they've got. It's so cute.
And it's also like a super validating moment for Steed, for Ed to be like, I'm here, I never left. Something I love about this show, and I talked about this with you before, Caitlin, but I think it's worth rehashing here, is it's a kind of show that I think you watch it a couple of different ways. The first time you watch it, you kind of have this will they, won't they attitude, where you're like, is this really happening? What? No. Like, this is just another situation where, like, it seems like maybe we as the watchers at home, we're misinterpreting what's going on between these two people. The second way you watch it is as a love story, because you already know what's going on, you already know what's taking place, and you can kind of watch it with the confirmation and validation and comfort that it is indeed a love story. So in that sense, the first time I watched that scene, I didn't see that they touched feet. I hadn't noticed that until it was pointed out to me later, I think, by somebody on Tumblr or wherever, and I know I'm not the only person that shares that sentiment of having missed that the first time. And there's something really beautiful about that. It's like one of those things where you can go back and watch it over again, and you see something new every time, kind of like an I Spy book, or like Where's Waldo. There's always like new details to pick up on. So that was one of those for me, and it really just made me go, oh!
I really also, when I first watched this, I thought this was the last episode. Because when I started watching the show, only 8 episodes had aired at that point. So I was just like, wow, what a good ending. Like, they're all together. Like, I would have been completely fine with it. I was like, this is so sweet. And I like that it was open-ended, that like, oh, maybe they get together or whatever. I hope there's another season, and they do. And the little like next episode button popped up, and I was like, never mind, I'll just keep watching.
And when you know what takes place in episode 9, I think it's hilarious that there was a point in your life where you didn't know there was an episode 9. Or that maybe any of us didn't know that, because episode 9 really changes the game.
It does, but like I just remember feeling like, I like that you feel content at that moment, where like, I mean, knowing how it ends, like I was definitely more comforted by the end of episode 8 for sure. But it was like a pleasant surprise when I found out there was 2 more episodes.
I know. If only there had been 1 more episode.
Oh God,
I think I'd be much more. I think I'd be able to sleep better at night. So, Caitlin, any immediate standout characters for you this episode?
For me, I was paying a lot more attention to Steed this episode, just because it was really interesting to me of the dynamic of Calico Jack coming into his world that he, like, Steed already feels comfortable with Ed. And it was kind of like we said before, like one of his childhood bullies, like, coming into his life again. Like, this was kind of like an insight into how his life might have been, like, of not being able to fit in with all these people who are doing like all of like these, like, you know, kind of like those, like, that tough macho man type thing that he clearly, his father wanted him to be, but instead he was picking flowers and like being sweet and lovely. And Steed clearly could never fit in of any other way, and he doesn't have to, but like he clearly didn't have like a lot of friends that way. And so to see that with Steed now, and especially since he and Ed have like at this point like a pretty good established friendship, and Steed clearly has feelings for Ed, but he has no idea what they are. And for that to come in and kind of ruin the dynamic, like they go to breakfast and there's only 2 places set because it's only usually Ed and Steed having breakfast together. Which I love that they established that. And Steed's just like, oh, I only have 2 places. Oh yeah, sure. You can sit there, I guess. I'll go at the opposite end of the table. And it's just like, I really felt for him and really, really sympathetic towards him, because it's just like, you're just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, you're going through this and you're having a bad time. And just like, you can see how much like it hurts him in a way, too, because all he gets is insulted by Calico Jack. And like for Ed, he's getting his past brought up again, and Steed seeing a side of Ed that he never knew, which is mainly like the Blackbeard side of Ed. So it was interesting to see Steed kind of like deal with that, and then how it affects his life, and in turn like Ed's as well. So that was interesting.
It is a weird dynamic, because like I think with Ed specifically, what I noticed this episode is like, you've got somebody who's kind of at the crossroads of this old flame that he has. It's kind of like your college boyfriend who's gross. And this new road he could be going down with this person who's soft and lovely and like wants to like go look at foliage with you. It's very interesting. I think it goes to show like sometimes we come to a point in our lives where like we're no longer interested in the same things we were when we were younger, and we kind of mature. And I feel like it's kind of like a crossroad episode for Ed. Which I really appreciate. So, Caitlin, what were your favorite quotes from this episode?
One of my favorite lines is when Steed is looking with a telescope at Calico Jack and Ed, and Oluwande tells him like, man, you gotta like put them out of your mind, like it's okay. And then Steed goes, they're the furthest thing from my mind, that's why I have this telescope. Which I think is so funny. I really liked when Jim and Jackie were fighting together, and Jackie pulls a knife on Jim, and Jim just goes, that was cool. Like, I love their respect for each other.
They have some mutual respect despite also being arch enemies.
Which is why I want to see more of them together. Like, I think they have such a cool dynamic. But also, I really like some lines from Calico Jack when at the beginning he looks at Steed and he goes, who's the big gal? Like, it's so insulting, but just his delivery is just really funny.
It's such a fucked thing to say, but
who's the big gal?
Who's the big gal?
And also when he calls Steed by the wrong name, he calls him Steve, and Steed goes, it's Steed actually, and Calico Jack just goes, what is?
What is?
It's just so funny. Because he just does not give a shit about Steed. He's like, what is?
I know. He's so mean, but I love him.
Yeah.
He's the worst. I want more.
Yeah. What about you?
Another Calico Jack line that got me is when they're playing Yardies and Roach falls off the mast and hits like the side of the ship as he goes down, and he splashes into the water, and it seems like he's not well, and all the crew looks
he's not well,
momentarily concerned. And
he broke his back. He's not well.
And Jack goes, well, and you think he's gonna say something kind of like with some finality, like let's stop playing, and he goes, who's next?
Who's next?
Like, there's just the way he says it. Again, like I think Will Arnett is a good example of like someone whose delivery is so funny that you just can't not like them. Like maybe they're written as somebody who's terrible, but they just bring such energy to the role that you have to pay attention.
You can't not laugh at them.
Oh, another one. I'm bringing up the foliage again. I love that Steed's idea of like a nice day when they first pull into Blind Man's Peak.
Blind Man's Cove.
Cove? Bay?
Cove.
Pier?
Cove.
I think somebody said cove, but I couldn't hear them.
It's Cove.
And when they're talking, and Steed is like, oh, like I really want to, should we like go on a nature walk or, you know, go for a dip? And he's like, oh, there's got to be some insane foliage. That's so funny. Like, that's like such a, again, like here again comes Steed's need to like have a day and like be like the mom that like makes everything cool, you know?
Yeah.
Very funny. Very sweet. And I think, again, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, do you want some wild guy as like hilarious as Will Arnett is? Yeah. Do you want somebody who is capable of some of the cruelties that he's already displayed on the ship, like murdering a seagull? Mm-hmm. Or do you want somebody who wants to walk through the foliage with you?
I think like that is interesting to like the dynamic between like, do you want that tough person or do you want like Steed?
Softness.
Because during the breakfast scene, Calico Jack starts talking about all of those like things that Blackbeard used to do, like burn a whole ship. And Ed clearly is like, the conflict is on his face where he's just like, I don't want to talk about that because I actually mellowed a bit and I'm not that person anymore.
Right.
And like
He's changed.
And like we've already seen that like he would rather be Edward than Blackbeard. He introduced himself as Ed to Steed, and that's all he's ever known by Steed. And I think like to have that like it's really easy for someone from your past to come into your life again and to immediately like divert to like that personality that you had when you were with them and when you're younger. And for him to I think to leave was actually good for Ed because I think he could have easily been stuck in that mindset with Calico Jack where everything is just like, we're just gonna like blow some shit up and just like not kind of give a care for anybody else around us and just be like have those more like violent tendencies that they used to have when they were younger. So I think leaving, although like as heartbreaking as it was, like it was still good for Ed because he needed to see like what he would have lost if he went with Calico Jack. And then of course he learns that Jack wasn't there for him anyway. He was just there because Izzy sent him. And I also like that Ed like yelled at Jack and said, he's my friend about Steed, which I think was really sweet. Like I think that was really eye-opening for Ed to be like, no, like that's the person I want to be with because I want to be who I am with Steed, not who I am with you. And I think that was really a good turning point for Ed to realize like this is what he wants for his life now.
It's also super interesting what Jack says after that. He says, like, pirates don't have friends. We're all just in various stages of screwing each other over. Yeah. Which is exactly what the pirate mindset and maybe, like, the Kraken or Blackbeard mindset is. Yeah. And that's what we see come out later in the season, toward the very end. Because really, when you think about it, this whole season is about Ed, not just about Steed and the crew, but it's also about Ed kind of like fighting who he is, and wanting to be maybe deep, like, not even fighting who he is, but like fighting this persona he has. Yeah, that people have made him stay. He really is. Yeah. Yes. So that's something I actually really appreciated as well. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So Caitlin, we talked about this in great detail already, but I think it's worth it that we revisit it before we move on. How did the end treat you? Oh my god, again, greatest scene in television history. I don't think we're biased to say that just because we like the show. I think it was genuinely like a really cool sequence. Yeah. I love that they're together. I love that that Fleetwood Mac played. I love that just all that matters is that they're together, and I feel like that really just like sets up the fact that they are at this point each other's world. Just I don't know, it's just so beautiful to me. I thought this was the last episode when I first watched it, and I was so content because they were together. Yeah. And I was just so happy, and I think it's just a really brilliant scene, and I have nothing bad to say about it. It was number 9 on my Spotify Wrapped, again for normal reasons. So yeah, it's incredible how time sort of stops when they're together. First of all, the lead up to that is spectacular. I mean, you've got like the English playing the drums, in tune with The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. You've got Frenchie playing the guitar, as if he's Lindsey Buckingham himself. It's an incredible transition, right? And then for it to all kind of end with Ed and Steed together, time kind of stopping for them while the chaos persists around them. It's beautiful. What else I love about it is that the song is about, betrayal. It's about leaving somebody you love. It's about never breaking the chain. At the end, Ed touches Steed's foot and links the chain back together again. What? That's insane. How could somebody do that? Like, there's something so beautiful about that. And, as somebody who watched this show once and kind of wondered, like, are they just friends? And then watched it again with the recognition that there was definitely like a really profound love story going on between them. It's a really special scene. It's such a good scene. Definitely one of my faves. And the foot touch was improvised, which everybody at this point knows, but I still think it's worth mentioning. Like, it's great. Great move. Now, don't say everybody. I hope there's someone at home watching who's like, what? Yeah. It was improvised? I hope you come here to find out fun niche facts about this show that you would only know if you're on Tumblr. And insane and don't sleep at night.
Mm-hmm. I want to watch this show for the first time again.
I know. It's almost like I wish I could like wish upon a star and then like not know anything that happened.
That's why I'm so excited and also afraid for season 2 because I don't know
what to expect.
Yeah, and like how my mental health is going to handle that.
I'm tempted to get in a car crash just so I can hit my head and forget pretty much everything that's ever happened to me just so I can rewatch this again with no knowledge.
Please don't. But I
heard you say please do, so I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So Caitlin, before we move on to the next episode, which is quite the move to make, I'm scared. I think we should rate this episode on our tier list, Caitlin.
Our tier list?
What in the heck are our tiers?
Our tiers are at the tippy top. It made me eat all of my house's drywall and the accompanying nails. Made me mentally ill, affectionate. Neutral, like my pH levels. Made me mentally ill, foreboding. And finally, at the very bottom, Riverdale Core. Yay! What did you rank it?
I said that I ate all my house's drywall and the accompanying nails for this episode. I just think it's hard for me to place this any lower on the list with just everything that happens at the end. Yep. It's just a great episode. Mm-hmm. So much happens. There's so many great scenes, and the end takes the cake. Yeah. How about you?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a house anymore.
Just wind blowing.
It's just gone. Just Fleetwood Mac in the distance.
We unintentionally become the podcast, but outside.
Yeah, we didn't mean it. We just watched a show that
Oops,
made it
we're
to your
outside
house.
with the table and microphones now.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I can't rank it any lower because of the amount of hours I have lost due to just staring at GIFs of their feet touching on Tumblr.
Half of my life.
Yeah.
Half of my life has been donated to experiencing this.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's also, I feel like with that foot touch, it's like one of the first moments where it's reciprocated. Like, I love when, like, we see, like, Ed is a very, like, hands-on person. Like, he's the one that, he's always doing, like, the shoulder touches and, like, is the one to, like, he's the one to make the move. But this is like, the first time that we see Steed, like, touch him back in any way. And I just think that's really good. A little short circuit in a moment. But, like, like, I just feel like it is one of those moments that, like, you see, like, it's almost like they're equal because they're connected in that way. Like, you see that at that point, like, there's a level playing field.
They're on the same page.
Because they both, when Ed had left, were devastated. Ed was clearly miserable on that beach. Steed, we know, was miserable because we stayed up all night watching them. So to see them be like, this is where we both belong, and then just a little boop. Yeah. It's done wonders.
Whoa. So if this were only the most insane thing that would ever happen in the history of this show, however, it's not, because we still have 2 more episodes.
Uh-oh!
I'm in danger. We are so happy that we had you join us for this episode of Lit by Moonlight. Please come back next week when we review episode 9.
Act of Grace. Who's not ready? Put it in the comments. We've seen this multiple times. We're still not well.
I've never seen it. I'm anticipating that it may be a little bit Riverdale Core.
Oh yeah, the worst episode to ever exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo! All right. Bye. Cheers and queers.